This conference will now be recorded.
So good morning. So let's start with Terraform, which is infrastructure as code purpose, or you can say infrastructure as automation purpose. So whenever you want to create instances on AWS or so whatever the cloud, AWS or Azure cloud. So basically, how do we do that? We proceed with creating all the steps manually, right? So you go with creating infrastructure, it's all pure manual steps. You go to the instances and then you create launch instances and you follow all the steps. You select the OS, whatever that is, select the OS, right? And you have the rest of the steps. So you select the instance type, you configure the instance, and then you add storage, all these things. Okay. But what, for example, I'm creating number of instances. I'm creating about, say about, so 3 instances or 5 instances. Then what would I do? I change the number over here. So I'm doing 10 instances, right? If you go with 10 instances will be created. But the question is, I want to create these 10 instances on different VPCs, different networks, right? Then how do you create them? So in this case, you need to go with creating all these instances one by one manually, right? So you go with for instance one, create the instance, and go to instance two, select the settings, and do the things. So this is like pure manual work. But so when you go to your in these all things manually, it won't help us out pocketry. So manage everything as in through the code. So that is why we have your Terraform as infrastructure as a code. Terraform provides that kind of concepts. Okay, so it is infrastructure as code tool, and in this, so Terraform will be writing scripts, and once we write these scripts, or you can call them configuration files. Once we write these configurations file scripts in script called HCL. So HCL is nothing but HashiCorp. Okay. So HashiCorp language. Okay. So where we write the scripts, HashiCorp scripts, and then once we write the scripts, we run the scripts, then we can have our whole infrastructure ready. Okay. So, and once you have the infrastructure ready, so then you can go with running your scripts and then have your infrastructure ready. When I say infrastructure, means not only instances, I mean, so also we talk about VPCs, we talk about subnets. Okay, so we talk about security groups, we talk about internet gateways. So we talk about all these things. This is what you mean by infrastructure means, not just only EC2. Okay, so I want to create my infrastructure something like this. So through the Terraform. So how do I do that? So that is why we have Terraform writing some scripts in HCL, HashiCorp language. Now, so firstly, straight away we will move on to installation. And before we do the installation, so let me go with this question here. So this question is, why we have Terraform and how do you compare Terraform with Ansible? So Terraform is for infrastructure setup purpose. If you want to set up the infrastructure, we use Terraform. Whereas Ansible, so Ansible is for configuration management purpose. Once you have the Terraform ready and you want to manage some configurations on it, we can go with Ansible. Okay. And is it possible to set up the infrastructure through the Ansible? Yes, that is also possible. Ansible also has some modules for creating infrastructure. Ansible has those kind of modules. Okay. But so why don't we use Ansible? Why we use Terraform? So the reason is, so writing all this, for example, let's say I want to create my infrastructure. So through for these ones through Ansible, so that takes a lot of efforts. Also, you need to go with, so you need to write some lengthy lines of scripts, and some of the modules are available, some modules are not available. So it is not totally manageable through Ansible. That's not manageable. That's why we have Terraform. Terraform makes our job easier, and also you can use the scripts reusable. So that is why we have Terraform. Okay. So then we talk about Terraform. So Terraform basically for targeted for infrastructure setup purpose, Ansible is targeted for the configuration management purpose. Okay. And once you set up the infrastructure, and on those infrastructure you want to set up the configurations, you can use Ansible. Okay. Well, anyway, start with installation. And when you want to install Terraform, firstly you install AWS CLI, AWS command line interface. So we are setting up the infrastructure on AWS. So we need to have AWS CLI installed. If you don't have AWS CLI installed, then you cannot run your Terraform scripts, or you can say, so you cannot use the Terraform to set up the infrastructure on AWS. So you need to have the AWS CLI ready first. So set up the AWS CLI, then you can run the Terraform scripts for the purpose of managing your infrastructure on AWS. Okay, then so let's do that, and after that we'll be installing Terraform. Okay. So is Terraform, is AWS CLI is mandatory? Yes, AWS CLI is mandatory. If you want to create infrastructure on AWS through Terraform, that is mandatory. So I need that instance first. Now I'm launching my instance, launching this instance. So we'll be using for Terraform server purpose. Okay. So I will be going with, let's take some Ubuntu. Okay. So t2.myglueburus, and then so I'm setting my Terraform master first, Terraform server first. Let's give a name. And it's supposed to so Terraform. So Terraform CAS server, let's say. And then you want to provide some securities to this, you can provide some securities SSH or any type of tools. So better you can go with all traffic. So that's not a problem. Anyway, then go with source from anywhere. Okay. Then launch, and just going with launching my instance with that key. That's our Terraform instance, and on which we will install our AWS CLI host. So I need its IP address. Waiting for the IP address. Just a second. That's our Terraform server. Okay. So take the IP address, just log in. Just logging in. So just first of all, go with the installation steps. So very simple installation steps for Terraform. CLI first, then we'll talk about that. So Terraform installation. So, and go with first apt install Python pip. Okay. So this apt install Python pip 3. So which is required to install AWS CLI. Okay. So this is a prerequisite package if you like to install AWS CLI. So through Python pip, I will be installing AWS CLI. So I install the Python pip first. So I have installed Python pip 3. And if you are installing that on Ubuntu 18, it is Python pip. But here it is Python 3. If it is on Ubuntu 18, that's Python pip. Okay. But this is Ubuntu 20, I think so. We are using. So install it. But Python pip has not found. I think we need to upgrade our repositories app update. So we can install now Python pip, Python 3 pip. So go with Y. Well, so Python pip is installed, Python 3 pip. And now we can install AWS CLI. So using Python pip 3. Okay. So the pip 3. So now we can go with pip 3 install AWS CLI. Okay. Install AWS CLI. So it is installed successfully, and that's the version it is installed, AWS CLI. And so once it is installed, then we need to set up, so we need to authorize my Terraform instance on AWS. So for example, I'm writing some scripts on my Terraform server, and that server is going to create some infrastructure for me, do some infrastructure setup on AWS. So first of all, AWS must give you that authentication, right? Your Terraform server must be authenticated to do the setup on Terraform side, I mean on AWS. So how the authentication will be given? So I will be creating an IAM user, and that IAM user will be having permissions to set up the infrastructure on AWS through the Terraform server. So I will be creating an IAM user for that purpose. Let's create a user. So I have some users. Let me remove these users. I can remove them. So, and going with creating user again. just so remove them, delete it. So add user, and let's give a username. The username is, let's give some username, whatever. Terraform is my username. So Terraform. Now, so programmatic access is mandatory now. See that? That's programmatic access. So this is where we use the programmatic access for the user, IAM users. Okay. So because we are doing it through the CLI, AWS CLI. And console access is not required. So whether you give console access or not, that's not required. Anyway, go with next. And then, so go with next step. Go with next. And then, so here you have, so you can create users, but go with the previous step again, the previous step. Now I would like to attach a policy as well. While I'm creating a user, I like to attach a policy, okay, to the users. So what kind of policy I'm going to assign? I'm going to assign a policy called administrator access. Okay, that's a policy. And then, so go with next. Why administrator access? Because this user will be doing administration for us. Okay, so that's the reason. Administration means setting up infrastructure, all these things. I want to get VPCs and all these things. So I create a user. Okay. Now we need these secret keys and then secret key ID, access key ID. I just need them. So I copy that. That's so secret key ID. That's ID. And then also I need this show access secret access key. So that's sorry, access key ID. I'm sorry. Access key, and then we have secret key. So I need to save them, make sure you save them. Now go with that secret key. Okay, we need them. So why do we need them? Where do we need them? Now on that Terraform server, I will be creating these credentials. I'll be saving the credentials on my Terraform server. Where do I do that? So on root user directory. Okay. So there must be, so we create a folder, make a directory first. What is the directory name is .aws. Make the directory, okay, .aws, which is a hidden directory. And once the directory is created, okay, just a second. So I think we can create that there. That's not a problem. So yeah, we can do it. Well, okay. So I'm here, then go with .aws, change my directory. That's my present working directory. And then, so let's create some files in it. So aws.aws, which is a hidden directory for where we save all these. So IAM user credentials, access, authentication, access key, and secret key. So where do you do that first? Now you go with create a file first. So what is the file name? I'm creating a file called so credentials file. Okay, so credentials file. That's a file name. Okay. Credentials. So create that file, credentials file. These are standard names, and then enter. Here you just go with adding those ones. Okay, so what do you add them? Secret key and then access key. So go with that. So secret key, access key. So what is syntax? Default. What do you mean by default? These are the default credentials. You can use it. So we'll be using it for the infrastructure purpose. These are default credentials. Okay. So what if there is no default? If there is no default, you can add these credentials even through the Terraform configuration files. Okay. But I will be using default ones. So we'll talk about that. Apart from default models we have. First we have access key. Okay, so what was the access key? Now that's access key. Copy the access key. And then we have secret key. That's secret key. Okay. Database access key and then secret key. So both of them, just add it and then save it. And that's your credentials file. And let's go with create another file, which is file name is config file. Okay. So what is config file? What does it have? See, let's say I'm creating my script in Terraform. Using that script, I will be creating my infrastructure. Okay. So if you want to create your infrastructure, then let's say, for example, EC2. Then where you're creating that EC2 instance, what is the region and what is the availability zone? So mention all of them. So where do you mention them? So within this, so configuration file, you mention your region and then your also availability zones. And in these regions, availability zones will be doing our infrastructure deployment. Okay. So, and what are they? You mentioned the region. We just mentioned the region here, and also just. But how about the availability zone? Availability zones, we can select it even later in the future. So we'll try that. Okay. So go with that. So US is 1. So default region is US. Instead of going with US is 1. I would like to go with so Mumbai region. So with Mumbai. Which is AP South 1. Okay. So change the region. AP so South 1. Okay. Now save. And output is JSON. Output JSON means when you run your configurations file, there will be some metadata created that will be in JSON format. Okay. So now we have set up the AWS CLI. Okay. So very two simple steps. First, to install that AWS CLI using pip3 install AWS CLI. After that, you just make a directory in user home directory. Okay. So Ubuntu, you make a directory AWS. In that, you create these two files. One is config file, other one is credentials file. And in config file, so you mention your region, and then in your credentials file, mention the secret key and also access key. Mention these two. And this user will be doing our infrastructure deployment, okay, through the Terraform, of course. Then, so what's next? Then we proceed with install Terraform. So installing Terraform is so very easy. So you just download the Terraform file first, and then so you can just install it. So where is the Terraform file? So I'm sorry, Terraformization, right? So open that file. So here you have, that's a link. From here you can download it. You can download from it, or else you can use that URL to download it. So using WCAD also you can download it. So now you set your OS. So what OS you're using? Select the OS. So hit it to the 64-bit. Select the OS and then the link from there. Okay, it's downloading and cancel it. Now, since I have the URL, I can do it from here itself. That's my URL. And duplicate the URL and can download. So that is downloaded. We have Terraform. Okay, just download it. Then, so it is an zip file. So I need to unzip it. Unzip Terraform file. So unzip not found. So since unzip not found, so we install unzip apt install unzip. Okay, and then it has been unzipped. Oh, we have installed unzip. Okay, now we can unzip and then Terraform. Now that is unzip. Now you have Terraform. Okay, you can run the Terraform command now. Okay, you can run the Terraform command. Okay, or you can say /Terraform. Is it possible? Yeah. So you can run the Terraform. That's possible. So, but I want to run the Terraform file from any path. Since I'm in my present working directory has the Terraform file. I can use that. So Terraform and then -version, I can do that. But I want to run the Terraform command from everywhere. Okay, so I want to go with so copy the Terraform file to user bin directory. Okay, so if you copy that to user bin, and then you will be able to run your Terraform from any path. Okay, you need not to be in your present working directory. You can be in any path. So I'm copying that to user local bin. Okay, so go with that. So copy, or you can move whatever you want. So copy Terraform and to /user and then local bin. There I'm copying. Now go with /user local bin. Now, so it should have been copied. Now it is copied. Since this is copied to user local bin, now I can be in different directory, and then I can go with let's say run Terraform commands, Terraform -version. So there you have Terraform. We need not to be in your present working directory. You can be in any directory. Okay. So now, since the whole setup is done, so I have set up my AWS CLI, and also Terraform is also installed. Now we can start proceeding with writing some configuration file scripts in Terraform. Those scripts, so we'll be doing our infrastructure setup for us. Now the first script I'm going to write here is to launch an EC2 instance on AWS. How I'm going to launch an EC2 instance on AWS? Okay, let's see. I'm making a directory here, and some directory, you can make any directory. This is only for my practice purpose. Let's say I write here Terraform scripts something. So, and go with that, change your directory to Terraform scripts. Now let's write the script. So how to write the script? And Terraform has some standard file names. The file name is main.tf file. That's the standard name. You create a file called main.yaml file, that's standard name, and make sure you have your main.tf file, and here we write the script. How to start our Terraform scripts? So Terraform scripts basically starts with first insert provider. Okay. So provider, who is the provider? And you're writing the script for script. Provider means who is the provider on which you're setting up your infrastructure. So I'm creating my CLI, I'm creating my configuration file for the purpose of creating my infrastructure on AWS. So if you go with, let's say I have another provider like Azure, you mentioned that Azure. Okay, so AWS Terraform supports different providers. That's the benefit. Okay, well, now go with provider, which is AWS is a provider, then open and then close. First you mention the provider. Then so what else is next? And you can give some extra space, one space. So there is no convention for this. Go with next. Then, what do I write here? I'm going to write my, let's say, region. I'm going to write a region. So in what region I'm creating my infrastructure? I'm creating my infrastructure on AP South 1. But so I already have mentioned my region in our configuration file. Hope you remember that. So in our configuration file, I already have mentioned my region there. Since I already have mentioned, do I need to mention my region again? So that is not required. But sometimes what might happen is, so you may want to create your infrastructure. In my config file, I have mentioned AP South, but here I like to go with, let's say, something like, so US East. You change that region here. If you don't mention anything, that will be, by default, it is your AP South 1, since it is default region, which we have mentioned in our configuration file, AP South 1. And what else we mentioned? We mentioned the version. We mentioned Terraform version. Just a second. So I mentioned the Terraform version. You can give one space here equals to, that's not a problem. So mention the version. How do you mention the version? This is a Terraform version. Which Terraform version like to use it? Now, so go with tilde, double quotations always, less than, and the version. Mention the Terraform version. Okay. So now that is how you start your script, Terraform script. First to mention the provider name. After the provider, then you write your resource type. So what is the resource means? Resource means I'm creating my instance on AWS. Okay, but so you mentioned that. So mention what type of resource you are creating. I'm creating EC2 resource. So since I'm creating EC2 resource, now I need to mention that resource name over here. So which one? Go with, let's say, you can go with bullet. So Terraform and AWS EC2 resource. Okay, EC2. Okay, so resource, let's say. Then go with that. Again, I think we can try this here. We can try whatever 4%. Okay. We can go with that next rather than this. So there is another link. This is here. It's not something to do. And a link. So go with the second one. No, this is not the one. Or can we go? There should be one more example here. One second, let me try that. Should go here itself, but comments are changed or something. Let me check this out. I want to show you that the basic syntax. That will work. Okay. Look at this. Don't look at the rest of the things. Look at here. So what is my resource is? My resource name is AWS underscore instance, the resource name. These resource names are predefined resource names. So they are provided these resource names. Just something like in Ansible, we have modules. The same way here we have resource types. Go with the resource type. So which is AWS underscore instance. These are the resource types. It's a resource name, resource type you say. And then I want to give a name to this. What is that name? That name purpose, it's different. We'll talk about its purpose probably tomorrow, day after tomorrow sessions. We talk about the purpose differently. So, but give some name always. What is the syntax is resource, a resource type, and also provide some name to the resource. So that is for, there is a different purpose why we are going with it. Now going with, let's say, give some name. Let's say my, so TL, so Terraform, something like EC2. You can give any name. There is no naming convention for this. Okay. But resource is predefined. That must be AWS underscore resource. Then open and then close. And then, so what else? Whenever you create instance, we need mandatory fields. What are the mandatory fields? We need first AMI. Okay, so mention the AMI equals to in double quotations, always in double quotations. If you don't mention the double quotations, the meaning would be something different. So go with the double quotations. And then, so what else? So we also need instance type, right? So go with, now if you're not sure, just use this document again. So resource, and then you have AMI and your instance underscore type. Okay, right. So instance underscore type, these are the parameters. So for the instance, for the resource, okay, AWS underscore instance, these are the parameters. These are mandatory fields always whenever you create your instance. Right? Okay. So what is the AMI I'm going to take? I'm going to take a different, probably take some, go with one more. Okay. Just go with AMI. You can take any AMI. I go with launch instance. When you launch instance, there you can find the AMI ID. So take some AMI IDs. You can take any AMI IDs. I take Ubuntu AMI ID. So select. You can see the AMI under details. You see the AMI ID there. Or else you just find it from launch. Then here also it is AMIs. These are the AMI IDs. Okay, so I take the AMI ID from here. That's AMI ID, and then instance type. So we know the instance types, and that's in the second steps we have instance types. So I'd like to go with instance type as micro instance type. So these two are mandatory fields. So when you want to create instance, and rest of them are not mandatory. So these are the two mandatory. I would like to go with this mandatory fields first. Now creating an instance. Okay. So provider first, that means on which provider you're setting up your infrastructure, and then you have resources. So what type of infrastructure you're setting up? Is it, are you creating in EC2 instance? Are you creating VPC? Are you creating a subnet? So are you creating NAT gateways, internet gateways? So you set up based according to your type, and you have instance. So you select instance. Sorry, resource types. Okay. So and these are the parameters. Okay. Now save it. That's our configuration file. Main.tf file is a configuration file, and then run the configuration file. How do you run that file? So Terraform, and then go with apply. Okay. So what apply does? Apply is going to run your scripts. So which is my Terraform scripts will be executed. So what this does, this is going to create our infrastructure. But before I create my infrastructure, I want to go with another command, which is plan command. What plan does? Plan is going to give us an idea what changes will be done. What changes will be done on my AWS. So it is kind of, you can say it's a dry run. So dry run means, so kind of a sample execution. Okay. Now let's go with the dry run first plan. But when I do that, so I have an error. What is the error? It could not load the plugin. So what plugin is not loaded? So the plugin which is not loaded is so AWS plugin. See, Terraform supports multiple platforms, AWS, Azure, GPS, multiple platforms. But why are you using your Terraform for this scenario? Here I'm using my Terraform for AWS. How do you know you're using for AWS? That is what I have mentioned in my main.tf file. In my main.tf file, I have mentioned that I'm doing infrastructure provision on AWS. So Terraform needs those supported plugins for AWS. Okay, so using Terraform init. Terraform init downloads its respective plugin. Whatever the plugins you are downloading, it's going to download those plugins. Okay, so run that. Now it's downloading those plugins. Now the plugins are successfully downloaded. Okay, so well, the plugins are downloaded. Now what I'm going to do, now I will be doing kind of a dry run. Okay, let's do a dry run. So what is dry run means? So the command I have shown you, which is Terraform apply. So not apply, plan command. What plan does? It is going to give us a dry run. Okay, let's see. So it's a plan actually. Now, so there is some syntax error. So let's find out what is the syntax error is. Open the file. So what was the error actually? The error was provider AWS, right? We have mentioned provider AWS. Okay. So no valid credentials sources for AWS provider. It's asking us there are no valid credentials mentioned over there. Okay. So you see that credentials are for the AWS providers are missing. The credentials are missing. So what does it mean? So it means that the credentials we have mentioned under the directory, user directory, that's in the where we mentioned that. I think the problem here is what happened was, so I have not mentioned, I have not created that in well. See, that AWS directory has to be available in root user directory, but unfortunately I've created that .aws directory under different other user directory. So I've created that somewhere in Ubuntu, right? So there is our .aws directory. I've created in a wrong path actually. That's the reason. So that has to be in root user directory. So for that reason, I'm moving my .aws directory. I'm moving. Okay, let's move it. Okay. Move it and to your root user directory. Okay. So that is why the credentials were not provided. You see that it says that credentials are not provided. So that is what is missing. Okay. Then, so go back to our Terraform scripts. So where is it? Somewhere in Terraform scripts. Okay. And here, so we run that again. Terraform plan command. Now this is your plan. So what it is giving us, it's giving us an idea. So what resource, how many resources I'm going to deploy. So one resource. Okay. So here you can see that. Okay. You have resource and which is AWS deep underscore EC2. Okay. So you're getting one resource. You see that one resource. Okay. Now, so this is just a dry run, but I want to do the actual run. So Terraform and then apply. Now, when you apply it, your script will be executed. It is going to do the infrastructure orchestration on AWS. So confirmation, give the confirmation as yes. Now, once it is confirmed, and you cannot take your changes back. So that is the reason it is asking first for the confirmation. Okay. Now, enter. So it's getting infrastructure and completed. So one resource has been added. Okay. So the AWS console. Check the console and go to EC2. I want to see any instance is being initiated. Yeah, you see that there is one instance is the initial, that's the instance. Okay. So just scroll down. Okay, that is initialized. So look at the instance summary there, and that's instance IP. Okay, but how do you know this is the instance I have created? How do I know that? Right now, so go back to your Terraform, and here there is a file called terraform.tf state. What the tf state has? Terraform.tf state has your list of configurations you have done. So what type of configurations I have done? Right, terraform.tf state file, open it, and then you have so configurations. Now, what is the instance ID I have created? You can see that that's ID I have created. Okay, so 9202 something. Oh, sorry, 02, sorry, 02, and then F0, right? See that 02 F0, that is my instance ID I have created. Okay, and what is availability zone? Under 1A availability zone, and then you can check the rest of the configurations under networking. So go with, and then what is that? Some we have network at VPC, and that's under subnet, which is a default one. These are all default VPCs. So why they're getting in the default VPCs? Since in my configuration file I have mentioned nowhere to create that on particular VPC, right? So I mentioned it nowhere. So it has created so in the default VPC. So now instance is created successfully, it has been initiated. Then I like to go with, so what happens if I run this same command, terraform apply? Is it going to recreate the instance? Is redeployment will be done again? Orchestration will be done again? So let's find out. Or else, first we'll try with LAN. We'll see. So no changes. Okay, there won't be any change in the status. So why there won't be any change? So, or let's do that run as well. Apply, I mean. So it says that, so it already exists, but how it knows it already exists? How Terraform knows the instance already exists? So that is why we have Terraform TF state file. See that it's checking that particular instance ID. So how Terraform knows that there is instance ID? Terraform knows that from the Terraform TF state file. So since the instance ID is already there, that instance ID, it is rechecking it. It is already available or not. Since instance ID is already created over here, so it is not going to recreate that. Okay. Now, even it will be the same thing when you go with Terraform destroy. So what destroy does? Destroy will be, so destroying the infrastructure we have created. So what is infrastructure we have created? We have created an EC2 instance. Which EC2 instance? That's EC2 instance we have created. But how does it know that is the one you have created? Right? How does it know? Because of that ID. From that ID, it knows. So where is that ID is maintained? Terraform TF state. Well, that is important question in views. What is Terraform TF state file? Terraform TF state maintains its state of your recent execution. Okay, whenever you apply your configuration file, so some configurations will be deployed. Those configurations are maintained under Terraform state file. Right. So now if you want to destroy it, then same instance will be destroyed from the Terraform TF state file. Enter. So it is destroying the instance. Yes. So now this successfully destroy completed. One resource, one destroy. Okay. Well, so you can see this is a status, and it won't be under running instance. Okay. So let me, okay. So it won't be under running instance, running state. It will be under destroying. Just or else we can even get the ID. Just it is terminating. There is this terminating. Now successfully terminated, and we can still see that. So you see that we have Terraform TF state file. Open the Terraform TF state file, and then so that is the latest one. So when you destroy it, you don't see too much information there. It is destroyed. Okay, but we have another file created. What is that? Terraform TF state backup. What is that? And this is the previous one. Okay, this is the previous one. So whenever you run your same configuration file multiple times, the latest configuration file will be Terraform TF state, and the previous execution file status will be under TF state dot backup file. That's the previous execution file backup. Backup means your configurations again. Okay. Now go with again main.tf file. Open main.tf file. In that main.tf file, so this time I let even go with creating an instance. also with some tag names. Go with tags. So tags is equals to provide some tags. Okay. Why the tags in braces? The reason is tags can have multiple names, right? Multiple tags we can have. When you go with any instance, take some instance. Okay. Instance can have multiple tags, right? Go with tags. So we can add multiple tags to them. There it is, manage tags, and you can add tags. So I want to go with getting multiple tags, right? So that's why it is in braces and mention that name. Okay. So name is equals to give some name. Let's say so TF Terraform first instance something. Okay. And you want to give another tag to this. You can also give another tag. Let's say something like so who is equals to, let's say, like 1 2 3 4 something. You can give even numbers as well. Now, so we'll be creating another instance with tag names. Then, so go with Terraform first plan. Terraform plan. Okay. So something error. So what is that? So main.tf a resource must be followed by at least one attribute access specifying the resource name. So okay, second. This is what I said. Open the main.tf file. So always these ones must be in double quotations. Okay. Otherwise, if you don't mention in double quotations, so they will be considered as IDs. We talk about the IDs in parameters, but anyway, so just do that. Okay, has to be in double quotations. Otherwise, it won't be considered as a value. It will be considered as an ID. Okay, so the same thing here. So resource type reference must be so followed by at least one attribute. Okay, has to be in double quotations. Okay, now again do that. First plan it. Okay, plan and then run. Apply. Okay. Then how many changes will be doing? Again, we'll be doing one change. Okay. So go through the changes here. So we can go through the changes here. That's a change. Okay. And also any other things, we have not provided any other things. That's okay. I think we have mentioned the name, I mean tags, right? So go with the tags, there are the tags. But what are these subnets? Unknown. So wherever you known after reply, I mean, so wherever you see this, okay. So known after reply means, so those ones are not provided by us. We have not provided them, okay, values for them. So now go with Terraform and then apply. Now, yes. So apply completed, and one resource added. So check my console and then, so or else you can even check this with the help of ID. So take the instance ID. I take the ID and then search for this ID here. It's still it create. Okay, just refresh the states, refresh it. Okay. So now it is 48. Now open that, so tf spec file. Okay, so open Terraform tf spec file. Here I can see that ID. Search for the ID. Just scroll down. Here it's not filtering. That's okay. You can see that manually here. Not created, not creating. What is the status? The status should be, we given some names, right? Yeah, there it is. That's the name. Okay. So that's my name. Terraform tf underscores instance. First in Terraform underscore instance. And then how many tags does it have? It should have 2 tags, right? Now under the tags, we select instance first and under the tags. So now I have 2 tags over here. I have name tag, I have 2 tags. Okay. So I have 2 tags there. Now what if I change my tag from here? Okay, I'm changing my tag. Let's say something like underscore modify instance underscore modify. I'm changing my instance names here. Some configurations I'm doing from the console. If I do it from the console and then so I re-execute the same thing, or else first go with Terraform plan command. I want to see what it is going to do. So 0 to change, but is the name will be changed. That's what we want. So Terraform and then apply. The tag, is it going to modify the tag? So let's see. Because the changes are done through the console. Now I'm running that again my step. Is it going to do the changes? We apply the changes again. So apply complete resources. 0 resources changed. Now, so refresh. So let's refresh that. Okay. So it is been modified. See that? It has been modified. When tag has been modified, not the state. So, but it says that, so 0 added, 0 to add, 0 to add, but you see there is 1 to change. It has not added any changes, but it has not added any new modifications, you can say, but it has done some existing changes. Something is there and it has been so modified. That is what you mean by 1 change to add. So whenever you destroy that, for example, now go with Terraform destroy. Okay. And then so it will be destroyed. But what is that 0 to destroy? So we'll talk about that. Now see that 1 to destroy. Now here 1 to destroy. So it's 1 destroy. Okay. So now this is how you just go with these city instances, but this is just only simple examples we have taken. So in our coming sessions, we'll be going with creating networks and also subnet security groups. Then we deploy the instances in those networks. So we'll talk about these things. Okay. Well, thank you.